Welcome back to Partnerships Unraveled, the podcast where we unravel the mysteries about partnerships and channel on a weekly basis. My name's Alex Whitford. I'm the VP of Revenue at Channext. And this week, I'm very excited to welcome our special guest, Joe. How are you doing?
Good. Alex, how are you?
I'm doing extremely well, looking slightly haggard with a 7-week-old baby, but I'm excited to be discussing all things MSP and growing business today.
Well, congratulations, first of all. So I know we were talking about that a little earlier, so that's fantastic.
Yeah,
fantastic.
No, it's really exciting. But maybe, Joe, for the uninitiated, you could give everyone a little bit of a rundown of who you are and where you've come from.
Sure. Joe Sykora. So I'm Senior Vice President of Channel Sales, Distribution, and Alliances at Proofpoint. I think more importantly, I am a father of 4. So I'm in that league with you. Well, not quite. I have 4. You have 1, but you'll catch up. You'll catch up. And before that, I was at a company called Bitdefender running global sales. And before that, I was a company at called FloridaNet. So, and I guess before all of that, I was in MSP and I was a partner. So I was right there with most of the people out there reselling the stuff and integrated it in.
Yeah, so that's the bit I really want to get into because you started at MSP land, which means you quite literally started and founded an MSP. But I think that always gives you a really sort of specific insight in terms of what partners have needed. And then you transition to sort of running global channels. Talk to me about how the understanding of your sort of nascent MSP business helped influence your strategy as you became a sort of leader and executive.
Absolutely. So being a partner, you pretty much know what a partner wants, right? So I was actually on the MSP and partner side for almost 13 years. So that was where I spent a big chunk of my career. People, when I talk to them, don't realize I haven't been in the manufacturer side that long, right? I've been there, 15, 16 years now, but people think I've been here forever. So I actually started to realize it helped a lot because I knew it was important to me. I know it was important to our partners. But more importantly, I have those relationships, right? So being in those groups, I was part of partner advisory councils. I was part of a lot of industry things. So those relationships are still very, very relevant to me today across the world. So I can call them and get sometimes the real deal, if you will. And for me, I don't like things sugar coated. And I want to know, what do we need to fix and what's working, what's not.
Yeah, one of the things that I consistently hear from sort of the most successful executives on this podcast is just how much partner feedback they get, how that helps drive their strategy. Could you sort of just wax lyrical around how partner feedback helps influence your strategy, how much time you spend garnering that feedback, what are the sort of practices you implement to generate that feedback? I'd love to understand a little bit more there.
Sure. Well, anywhere I've been, including Proofpoint, I form partner advisor councils, right? So these are councils of not only our top partners, but I try to represent all partners, right? So it could be, some top resellers, some top MSPs, could be some up and comers, could be some small. So that way you get an unbiased reaction to some of the things you're trying to change. And then I literally talk to partners every day. I know that sounds maybe strange for some people. It shouldn't sound strange, but for people in my position, it's sometimes they don't talk to partners, right? The other thing I do is I'm very active in the field. So I will go visit partners across the world. I've been, I don't even know how many countries so far when I've joined Proofpoint, but I'm not afraid to jump on a plane, travel there, meet with them, do partner roadshows, shake their hand and get to know their business. So it's really what shapes my entire program and my go-to-market. I have, as we all do, I have my framework, right? I have my framework. I tell everyone, I'll let anyone have my framework because they pay me and the team to execute that framework. It's not rocket science, but it's a pretty basic framework that I've used for the last 3 companies and it seems to be going pretty well.
Could you just give us a high level sort of insight into how that framework works?
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, the top priority is do what you say, right? Do what you say. If you're not able to do something, then don't say it. So the transparency, the honesty, and everything else with partners, it's okay to be transparent, even if you have to deliver some news that maybe isn't favorable or something they're not going to like. We're open about it. We talk about it. And it's that constant 2-way feedback, right? So I have that. Other than that, it's basic building blocks. If you look at the programs that I've built over the years, I tried to simplify them because complexity, like in cybersecurity, complexity is the enemy Same thing with channels, right? You build very simple programs, easy to understand. I've come into places, I've talked to others in the industry, and they show me their program. And it's like, it's this choose your own adventure where there's like 1,000 different options in this. It's the first thing I'll say is, okay, it's way too complicated. Maybe a good program. I'm not saying it's not good, but if it's complicated, partners don't have the time, right? So what you'll see is like here at Proofpoint, we're going through our ecosystem transformation. That's what I've been here a little over 4 years. I was brought in to do the transformation. We simplified the program into 2 different levels, right? Now we have specializations, right? So people who want to get like uber into our tech, but it's level 1, level 2. That's it. I don't use precious metals. I like to always say tinfoil, aluminum, and I always make fun of precious metal programs, but that is a thing of the past, right? What partners want is they want to have predictable margins and revenue, right? That's 1 and 2, right? Very predictability is important. And they also want to make sure that they are compensated along the entire sales journey rather than just at the point of resale. Because myself and many, many people out there in the channel world, you're, especially with the world of SaaS, right? SaaS, cloud, everything. It's not your traditional, here's a widget, I'm selling a widget, and you get paid X amount of margin for selling this guy. That's a thing in the past. I see a lot of programs that are still geared towards that. And really what you want to do is you want to reward partners based on actions during a sales cycle. So it could be if they're doing a proof of concept for you. That's a heavy lift. If I'm a partner, there's a lot of cost in the pre-sales efforts for me to do that. And if I don't know that I'm going to resell or win the business on the resell side, it's hard for me to say, hey, let me make a big investment in all these engineers to go do POCs and everything else. So just a real basic example, but make it simple, make it very easy to understand, and, incentivize and reward partners for the behaviors that you want, right? It's that easy. I know it maybe sounds a little bit complicated. It's that easy. It's really that easy.
You obviously joined Proofpoint to help drive a growing channel business. It sounds like one of the key things that you've changed is some of the programs to help generate that change in performance. Could you talk through some of the other strategies that you've really focused on in those 4 years to drive that incremental growth?
Sure. Well, one of the big ones was we weren't really allowing partners to do a lot of services, right? So if you're building programs out there on the channel side and you don't allow partners to do managed services, something around stickiness, you've got to change that right away, right? So that was one of the things that when I came here, I was very surprised to see. We're allowing partners to do like that much, right? Like very, very little. Some of them were building practices, some of them were doing managed services, but it wasn't fully supported on the back end by Proofpoint. So we've gone through this journey where now we have our certified delivery program, right? Our CDP program, where we're authorizing and training partners to even deliver all services, installation services and everything else. So that was a big shift. All right. And opening that up for partners, the power of services, because if you talk to any of your partners throughout the globe, all of them want attached services or managed services, because, what it does to their margin is it explodes, right? And it becomes very, very back to the predictable margin. It is something that is very predictable to them. And they're doing all kind of kickers, incentives, and everything else to their sales folks to get services. So opening up services is huge. And I'm very happy to say that was one of the big things we did get accomplished over the last couple of years here. So that was a big one.
Yeah, it's so often missed, right? Because I think a lot of executives think about their brand as the brand, and that's how partners are making money. But I know so many partners who go, well, the brand is the brand, but we exclusively care about the service wraparound. And so you can be more expensive, but they have a great service wraparound as opposed to a less expensive brand where there's no service wrap. And MSPs will continue to choose the area of the business where they can put that wraparound.
100%. Because let's talk about resale. I mean, resale is, listen, I've gone publicly and said resale's dead. I'm not going to say that today, but I will say it's dying, right? Because you've got all kind of different, the marketplace motion. You have all the, you have the hyperscaler marketplaces that are just continuing to drive margin lower and lower and lower on resale. Hey, you know what? If I'm a MSP partner, great. If you want to do a BYOL or buy it yourself, go buy it there. And then all I care about is the managed services, right? Of course, on my side, and I think on the MSP side, the ultimate is how do we, and it's almost like an OEM relationship. Sometimes they use my brand, sometimes they hide my brand. It's okay because if we're part of a bigger solution, that's fine. I mean, we have many, many relationships like that. And, when I was an MSP, that's exactly what I did. I was selling my brand. I was selling to my customers. It was just, what I used in my tech stacks was just that. It's part of, but it wasn't the solution I was offering.
Yeah, I think that's the irony, right? The precious metal status at the vendor is dead,
Sure.
and it's swapping to the precious metal status at the MSP who's selling their gold package, right? Which includes 10 brands that never see the light of day because the end user doesn't care.
No, they don't. They don't. What end users want is they want to know, A, they're protected, and they have someone to call if they have a question and or if something goes wrong. That's what and I'm not saying it's an insurance policy, but part of it is that knowing, I talk to a lot of end users too. I'm very unique. I work with end users. I work with partners. I work with MSPs. And I talk to a lot of end users, and I tell you what they want is they're like, hey, at the end of the day, I want them to tell me I'm buying a service, right? To know I'm protected. And that's all I need to know. What they're using on the back end is their choice.
So one of the things that I think is nuanced and complicated about being in your position is you serve a broad channel, but you also serve a broad segment, right? Proofpoint traditionally has lots of enterprise business, and they're also heading down market and servicing the SMB. Talk to me about the complexities of taking an enterprise grade solution into the SMB space while also building that for the channel.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's always a challenge. It is, because I'll add one more complexity, and it's a little controversial, I think, talking with partners, but we also have a direct motion, which is fine, right? When you look at companies who are our size and service all segments of the business, on the high end of the market, if you talk to the Fortune 100, most of them are going to want to deal with me direct. It's just the way it is, right? And again, if you look at a routes to market methodology, you have several different routes to market. Indirect is one of them, right? I've also been on stage and I've talked through that too, and I've argued the fact that is okay. It does exist and can coexist with everything. Now, the having an enterprise grade product, because Proofpoint, listen, we're upper right on all the quadrants, right? I think Gartner just released a couple new Magic Quadrants. Guess who's in the leader quadrant, right? We are, which is fantastic. It all comes back to our threat research and our data, right? Our data separates us from everyone else. Now, the reason that we have the data is because we're in 86 of the Fortune 100, right? We're in all of these other businesses because we're over 20 years old. We're an older company in the business. Most people think, hey, we're just doing email security. No, we're complete. We're a human-centric people protection, protect the people. We have everything, right? It's a complete platform of suites. Now, do MSPs need all of it? I'll argue and talk to them and say, yes, you do. But sometimes your customers aren't ready to spend the extra, but they will, right? It's getting there. So having the ability to go into, let's say I go to an MSP conference, which is mostly, it's focused on SMB. People know the Proofpoint. Most people have heard of Proofpoint, right? Which is good. Brand recognition is really well. Yes, we may be recognized for more of an enterprise grade security, but again, it's the age old enterprise security at a SMB or commercial price. You can't argue with that, right? And you have a lot of choices when you're looking for providers. Not all providers scale to enterprise, right? That's the thing. It's very difficult to go from SMB to enterprise. I think I've done both, right? I've done both. And I will say scaling down is easier just because the simple fact is you can offer this plethora of technologies and services. And, if I can give some 5 nines of protection, that's pretty cool. Because whether you're SMB or anything else, if you're an MSP out there, what do you want? You want as little false positives and incidents as you can, because that's money, right? If you have to do things and you can't operationalize them, you want a very effective solution. So I think the biggest challenge I've had is, not changing, but shifting some of the behaviors internally to make sure that we have what's needed when we look at, okay, how do we take care and service MSPs? How do we look at SMB solutions and commercial solutions? So that's been the, I guess, adventure, right? Is that, and the services that we talked about goes hand in hand. Because if you think about it, if I'm a Fortune 100 company, who do you want doing the services? Probably the manufacturer, right? So it makes a lot of sense. So that's part of opening up everything that we did.
Awesome. I think one of the things that I'm always interested when people create radical change within their go-to-market motion is that requires radical change within the organization. I know you're very proud of the high-performance team that you've built. Can you talk us through what are the cultural markers that you look for? How have you built such a team that's generating such significant change in the market?
Yeah, I've got one mantra: must be present to win, right? And I've used this throughout my career, and it's a very simple, right? People are like, oh yeah, must be present. No, you must be present to win. It's showing up. It's showing up every single day, even the days that maybe you don't feel like giving it 100%. You still have to show up, right? You have to show up. You have to show up for your partners. You have to show up for your end users. You have to show up for your fellow employees, right? So that is something that for me, I've always built teams that have this desire to win, right? So I hire a lot of ex athletes, right? Athletes are a good pool, a lot of so wherever you see competition and places that stimulate competition, that's kind of what I do. And funny story, and this is way off the wall, but when I had my own MSP, right? How did I build those teams? And I don't know if anyone remembers Circuit City, right? It was a big, it was in the US. They were a big chain, right? Like a Best Buy. But back then, I would go in and I'd go to the computer department because I was in IT. And this is back in the 90s, right? A long time ago. I would have them try to sell me a computer. And that's how I would be like, hey, wait a second. You're a pretty good salesperson. Why are you here? Right. So it was interesting. It's having that. I'm a true believer. You're born with certain traits. You can't change those traits. But what I can do is I can partner you with someone that's strong where you're weak and they're weak where you're strong. It's all about this partnership. So think of it as this puzzle. And I put this together. The important thing too is most places I go, I do have people that follow, which is important because they understand my framework. They understand kind of how I manage. And, it's worked out pretty well so far where we've been able to put up some big numbers and always exceed expectations.
Yeah, I think finding those people who are competitive to the core of who they are. I always see whenever I'm hiring young salespeople, like it's their first job and we wouldn't need to see if they make it. A question I always ask in the interview is, what's more important, winning or trying your best? And 9 times out of 10, the best performing salespeople I've ever met, they have this hunger and they just tell me winning's the most important thing. And I'm like, this we can work with, because if you've got that level of desire, it's so easy to mold them from that point onwards.
No, absolutely. So sometimes it's funny because I work with a lot of younger people too. Now, there is the edge of winning at all costs because you don't want to, that's where I come in and I teach them kind of these frameworks that they have to work with on. But yeah, it's having that competitive spirit is so important in people that you hire. And like I said, you have to be present to win. You have to get out there every day and do the reps. You have to do practice. You have to get out there and be out.
It's far easier to put guardrails around people than it is to make them more motivated, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
So I know you are mentoring the next generation of channel leaders, which is something that is very close to your heart. Could you share some of the most valuable advice you've given to your mentees?
Yeah, that's a good one. Cause I've always, it's silly, but even when I was younger in my 20s, when I had my companies, I was running incubator programs. So I was still mentoring and I was doing things with colleges and everything else. So for me, there is this desire to help the next generation. As I get closer and closer, I actually turned 51 this year. So most people are like, holy cow, you must be ready to quit. I was like, no. I said, I'm having too much fun. But, some of the advice I give them is listen, it is it's back to the present be win. It's having that desire, working hard, showing up every single day, even the days that maybe you don't want to. That's important, right? The having the tenacity to do that is something sometimes you can it's not, you can't teach it though. That's the problem, right? Back to you're born with it or not. I can teach you technology, right? I can teach you sales strategies. I can teach you all of that, but what I can't teach you is to be tenacious and want to win and getting up every day and giving it 100%. So, that's the biggest advice I give. Now, I have nieces and nephews that, and even my own children, we always talk about what they want to be when they grow up. Right. And it's funny too, because I always encourage whatever they want, whatever they're passionate about, you have to have it. Now, of course, I try to swim towards tech and channels and sales, but sometimes it doesn't. It's as long as they're happy, because you have to be very happy with what you do and you have to enjoy it. Because if you don't enjoy it, as sure, you enjoy doing this. I love doing my job. And if you don't have that, it's very difficult. So, that's some of my best advice.
Yeah, 40-year career is really bloody long if you don't enjoy it, right? Like you've got to, we've got to enjoy it. One of the things that I know keeps the best leaders ahead is the ability to look ahead. What do you see coming down the line in terms of emerging tech?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I do pay, believe it or not, what I studied was electrical engineering. So that's my background is tech. So I'm very, very passionate about the technology. You'll notice too, I also go to the only place I work are very technical companies, platforms. And I know that's been overused, but I do see convergence of platforms because end users want to consolidate. MSPs want to consolidate, right? We all want to make things more integrated, more simpler, and operationalize things, right? If you're an MSP out there, that's what you want to do, right? How do you lower your overall cost to operate your platform? So the platform, listen, there's no one platform that's a silver bullet in cyber. I've been in cyber for a while, but what is emerging is there are definitely technical alliances with platforms, integrating with platforms to form a complete solution. So that's what I see. You're going to see additional consolidation. I think we've been seeing it in the market. There was a lot of consolidation this year. There'll continue to be more consolidation in the years to come. I don't want to drop the AI, but as you know, and everyone out there listening, AI is at the forefront of a lot of different things. You need to know when to use it and when it makes sense and when it doesn't. There are certain tasks and there are certain things and certain tech that's coming out that I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool, right? It's AI based. I quickly go back to my days of having my own SOC, right? So I had a security operations center. Man, all of the mundane tasks of, okay, is this really a threat or not? Do I need to act or not? All of that with AI, man, it's pretty cool. And the other thing too, what I used to always struggle with and some of the manufacturers struggle with is multiple admins and user interfaces, either through an acquisition or different products. Now we can use AI to combine all those and simplify it, right? So it's pretty slick. So those are some of the things I'm looking at. Again, it all comes back to the data, right? If and I can't stress that enough, if you're going to partner with a manufacturer that has, if their data is not massive, if they're not a big data company, that's where the difference is, right? If you can't view everything across the world, whether it's a small business, an enterprise business, some business in between, how it's only as good, your protection's only good as the data, right? And that's something that I see. There's a couple players on the market and it's emerging as, okay, here's who the winners are going to be, and here's who's going to have to partner with the winners for their data, right? That is something that's happening for sure.
Awesome, Joe. It's great to hear you looking ahead. And I certainly think, from a cybersecurity perspective, AI is going to be the gift in terms of operational efficiency, data analysis. It's also the challenge, right? Because we see a lot of threats coming from that area of the market. On the podcast, we also like to look ahead. So we always get our current guest to recommend our next guest. I know you have someone in mind.
Oh gosh, someone in mind. I've got all kind of people in mind, but I think you're already probably Larissa Crandall. I think you've been introduced to her.
Yeah, you were Yeah,
Yeah.
Clayton, and I think Ninja, Sal, you thought he would be a particularly great next guest.
Absolutely. Sal would be a fantastic guest as well. So hey, listen, we can go a long list. But yeah,
Awesome.
a lot of people doing a lot of cool stuff.
Awesome. Well, Sal, we're definitely coming from you. Joe, thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge.
All right. Thanks. Take care.